Welcome
Supplies.
to the Love of Lapidary Podcast, episode 6. We're going to be talking about equipment tonight, and we have special guests John and Sherman Rowland from Highland Park Lapidary on with us tonight. So let's talk about some equipment. Hi, everybody. How y'all doing?
Hey,
Doing great.
and
Yeah,
thank you
it's
guys
a
so
good
much
day.
for joining us
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah.
Super excited for this.
I love what you guys are doing. Like this whole series is really, really valuable for people because there's and I really admire like when we did the previous thing with you as
Mhm.
well. Like that's
Rock
just
Talk.
such a service to get people information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Well,
we
and
like
that
doing
is
it.
really
It's
the
a lot
point
of
of
fun.
what we do.
You know, there's so many new people entering the hobby. Like 40% of our customers are buying their first piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, think about that. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
It is, yeah, it really is. And we were kind of touching on that a little bit earlier with the way the industry's going, right?
Yeah.
So it's really nice to have you guys doing what you do because you do have, especially now, like we were talking about a few minutes ago, the price points versus the quality that you're getting, right? So, with the Highland Park, the quality is definitely there. That stuff's gonna last.
They're beefy. Well, some people have said to us that we've made them too beefy. Is actually one of our competitors. He's like, "How are you going to get a repeat business with a customer?" I'm like,
Right.
I'd rather you buy rock than
Yeah.
have to wear out a machine and then have to get a replacement machine. Like, because it's about the rock. It's about making things. It's not about, oh my
Right.
God, I got to buy a new piece of equipment every
Right.
5 years because it wears out or 10 years or struggle
Right.
with it.
Right.
No, you don't have to buy one every 5 years or 10 years. But with as fast as John is coming up with new pieces of equipment, he is personally contributing to my upcoming divorce because that's where all my money's going.
Well, look, your spouse knows
That sounds
exactly
like
where
a
you're at,
personal
and you're doing
problem.
something.
She does,
that's,
right?
Goodness, man.
We
No,
need
John,
to get
one of the
back.
things I look at, like Courtney's
Goodness,
talking
man.
about, we have a whole new generation, and a lot of the people on here, we have a new generation of people coming into this hobby, and not all of them are either they don't have time, they're not adept enough, or they don't want to work on old equipment like I've picked up here and redo some things.
Mhm.
They want to be able to step out and buy something that's ready to go, and
Right.
that is
Yeah,
that niche
that's
that you
right.
guys have been filling.
For sure.
Well,
Yeah.
and certainly what we've seen is not everyone is comfortable in rebuilding an old machine.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes what will happen is somebody will buy an old machine and then they'll realize they've got themselves a huge project and then they're struggling. And certainly we
Right.
try and help anybody like that. Like you'll see that I'm on Facebook and a lot of these different groups, and
Thank you.
I'm working to help people be successful. But part of the advice that I'll give people when they ask me is if you're, like if they go, well, should I buy a used machine or not? And a lot of people on Facebook will say, oh, buy the used machine, but they won't really ask the question, well, how are you at repairing machines?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And certainly I feel
Right.
like we want to give everybody as much knowledge and access to knowledge and skill so they can maintain their machines. But that's kind of different than I'm going to start a rebuild project as my first entry into lapidary,
Right.
which can be daunting and it can make you lose your
Mhm.
energy for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a
I
really good
started with
point.
a cab mate that's 35 years old.
Oh yeah.
You still
Yeah.
use it, don't you, Dave?
Oh, absolutely. It's sitting right there. And that's what I pre-shape all of my cabs on is that cab
Right.
mate before
Right.
I go to the
I've got
newer
I have a
machine.
quick question, John. You sent a beautiful red arbor in a package from Texas. What's that? I've never seen that part before.
Well, I had this guy. I saw this guy was struggling with he had an old Star Diamond, I think it was a 10 or 12, and he's struggling because his bearings were shot in his arbor. And those things are, if anybody's ever tried to do them, they're really kind of tricky to press new bearings in.
Hmm.
And the arbor shaft was pretty chewed up. So he sent it to me and I reverse engineered it, and then I made a really awesome drop-in replacement that will fit both the beacon star and the star diamond. So you got to take a picture of it, and I'll give you his address. We'll send it to him. But
Okay.
I got more coming, so we're going to help people with their old star diamonds and beacon stars. And I'm constantly, like, matter of fact, somebody just sent me a Hillquest feed nut,
Wow.
and I just did the design for that, and we're going to offer those.
And I got
gonna
that
help
vice,
people.
that Lortone moving vice part that we're going to do the reverse engineering for. That one guy's broken vice.
See, and that's exactly, part of it, right? Like, you guys aren't just about fixing your own stuff, right? If somebody has an issue, whether it's a HP brand or not, you're going to help them.
Right.
And that's
amazing. John just helped me with Ed Birmingham, actually, because Ed just rebuilt that Raytex C8A, and John helped me get brand new wheels for Ed for that. Ed did a crazy job on that thing too.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I've still
Ed's
never seen you make parts for a ducket.
Well,
We know where it's at.
I bought a Ducats years ago, and it has that weird homebrew water-driven hydraulic feed, and
Yes.
it was leaking like a sieve, and it had all kinds of problems. And I just did a retrofit screw feed. I basically pulled the Highland Park screw feed and dropped it into the unit and turned it into a really reliable saw. But there's not that many Ducats out there.
There are. I just sold mine. I needed the money to buy the EverClean system with, so I sold my 14-inch Ducat here about 2 months ago.
Didn't Beaver Bay guy, didn't he have like Ducat that looked like a boat? It's like a 24-inch Ducat or something?
He did. He had this huge one. I remember that.
Beaver Bay Rock Shop up there off of Lake Superior?
Yeah, it's on the top side of Lake Superior. I don't know. It's like an hour and a half from, what is that, Duluth?
Keith? I'm trying to think. Keith Bartell.
Keith Bartell. Yeah, really good guy.
You're a good dude.
He's got a great museum there.
Here's a really good example.
That's right up our
there. I
way.
mean, some of these pieces of equipment, if you're good, if you're mechanically inclined, those were awesome pieces of equipment. That Ducat, I've never had anything cut so smooth. I could dial that down to 3 pounds of pressure, and it would just sit on that blade all day long. It was just as true as can be if you're mechanically inclined enough. But we have a lot of people out here, they just don't have that. And I meet people like that all the time. I have a young man just down the street from me. He ended up buying a bunch of used equipment. I've never seen anything designed like the stuff he had. It is so homemade that nobody has an idea what to do with it. And, but he called me over. He said, can you tell me what some of this is made to do? Because he has zero clue. And so, and those are the people I say, look, if you know nothing about this, go new. We'll find somebody like you guys. I say, find somebody that can tell you what that piece of equipment does and how you're going to use it and can help you service it.
Yeah. Well, and like I see Jackie's comment here that want to figure out how to make the stuff work. This is why we did all of the videos. So if you're
I was just gonna say, the videos you guys do are amazing.
If you're getting oriented, watching our videos, you can learn a tremendous amount about how the machines function, because once you actually gain that understanding, there's nothing magical about it. It's like learning each aspect of the machine, like the feed system, the arbor system, how it functions, then it becomes routine. There's nothing magical about it.
And that knowledge applies over to other machines. So we have about 600-700 videos up there. And you can find playlists that take you through like the production saws, but that'll apply over to, if I've got, say, a Barranca saw and I need to understand what's happening. It's the same principles. I mean, obviously the way it's implemented is somewhat different across saws, but that is a great library of people. It's funny when I walk around or I've been calling people on the phone. They're like, I can't believe I've talked to you, because they've seen my videos, but that I answer the phone, they're like, that's ridiculous.
Right.
Well, as a matter of fact, I recommend people who don't have a slab saw yet, before you buy a slab saw, go on your guys' website, watch every video they can find that you have on slab saws, so they know what they're getting into and what to expect and how it's going to work.
Right.
Just letting people know the steel difference between Highland Park and different saws has been enough for me to send so many people to Highland Park.
Yeah.
No flex.
Right. Well,
No
and
flex.
the way that Sherman explains things in the videos too.
Oh yeah.
You make it very simple.
Yeah.
You know, you're not speeding through things. You're not skipping over things. You're very thorough, and the way that I've watched a few of your videos, and even like he'll be like, "Come over here and get this angle because I want people to see it from this angle." Or, you know, he's making sure that it's being filmed the right way. It's just amazing.
Well, you know, we started doing those videos originally because we were answering the same question dozens of times. And we're like, there's got to be a better way of not.
We did it to preserve our time. And we weren't thinking about it as much of how it would really impact and help people learn.
Right.
But that became like kind of evident as we got further into it. We're like, people really are finding this valuable. In beyond like us just saving the time to repeat ourselves, we like really built a library of knowledge, and we have a vision for what we want to do next, because well, and this is a great thing for us to talk about, because like if you go on Facebook and you see a beginner come into one of the groups and they'll say, well, I'm really excited and I want to learn more about lapidary, and I want to get a piece of equipment to get started. And then what you'll see is all these different people will say, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this.
Right.
And it's got to be so confusing.
Yeah.
And nobody hardly ever will ask the question, well, what do you want to make?
That's right. That's right. Because there's so many different facets.
And they're just saying, buy this. Yeah. Then the person will, if they take the advice, then they'll go and buy a piece of equipment, and then they'll end up in the question of, oh, I want to make this. And then they realize, oh, this equipment's not that good for me.
I bought the wrong thing for what I really want to do. So that's a good point. You know, do your research, figure out, you know, join your local rock shop. Or not rock shop.
You know
rock
what?
Club. Go do some playing around with stuff. Figure out what is your niche going to be? What is it that you're going to love to do about it before you go and spend a bunch of money on the equipment?
Exactly. And the second question that's really important, which is, what do you want to make it out of?
Right.
Because if the person says agate versus if they say turquoise, then the equipment that they're going to want is going to be different. And actually this problem, it's not just a problem that happens on like social media. This is a problem that happens with the other manufacturers that are selling equipment, because they're not thinking about asking that question. They're just selling the gear. Like partly because they're used to dealing with all the old timers that are in it. They already know all that stuff. But when you have so many new people coming in, you have to start asking that question, or they will make the wrong choice.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because we don't like even something like the differences between the different types of rocks or whatever. We automatically just think that people are where we are. Right. Yeah. We forget to treat. So I'm part of another club, and it's real simple. Like, treat everybody like they're a newcomer. Until you get to know what stage they're at, right?
Hey, one of the things, just I want to catch, somebody in the chat was asking the question about that grinding machine. I don't know.
Jaws was,
Yeah. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and explain it for people? Some of the people may not have seen that machine. It's too bad we don't have a video that we could just put up, because that thing is like crazy.
I shared that with Jaws this morning. I think he's excited.
Yeah, that's what he's asking about. So what is that machine?
Basically, one of the things that I've thought about and why I designed this machine is that I realize that everybody that does tumbling has the same problem. that they'll start off with all these weird shaped rocks, and they're either going to stick them in their rotary tumbler and run them for a week or 2 weeks to get them rounded off to where they start looking decent.
Right.
Or they're going to go over to the grinder and grind on them by hand to try and make it go faster.
Right.
And so what I was thinking about when I did that is like, well, how do we take this and optimize this as a process? And I'm actually modeling a little bit off of some other machines that I saw to take the concept and then utilize different aspects of it to build this massive, grinding capacity in a fairly small footprint. And so that's what drove that. And basically it's got a big thick plate in the bottom that's a diamond plated plate that will remove material insanely fast, so that you aren't spending weeks in a rotary grinder to get your stuff rounded in looking good. And so the videos that you'll see that Zeke's been posting are really illustrative.
I actually have a picture of it. I actually found his Facebook here. You want me to show this?
Do we have a way to pull that up?
Oh, hold on. I got a picture.
Oh no, just the thought of getting a week's time worth of cutting and tumbling out in an hour.
No, 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
It took 3 minutes.
Good Lord.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Good
I'm
Lord.
trying to see.
You guys are insane. I love you.
It's no. I was stumped this morning whenever I saw the video. I was like, now, does this replace your 80 grit? Your first stage grit? Is that what it does?
I would say that my feeling would be I would still run the 80.
Okay.
But I'm going to run it because there you'll see when you look at the stones, you see little imperfections that are like concave areas, because it's not going to be able to touch concave areas. But what it's going to do is it's going to take all the rest of what you would want to produce and round off, and that's done. So all you're doing is you're loading your rotary, and then your run time is going to be way reduced.
Right. You're talking like a day in the tumbler after that, probably?
Yeah. Well, honestly, you could probably run the 80 grit in a vibratory with the way these are rounded in. And the vibratory is a faster action.
Yeah.
That's just insane.
The movement in it. And then you got less, like if you're dealing with materials that get impact marks on them, like certain softer materials, if you're running a vibratory, it's really great for eliminating that problem.
I'm in a lot of the like the rock tumbling hobby lapidary group and a lot of other groups where people are tumbling, and Jaws Jr. does the same thing. Anything he tumbles, he takes and grinds it on the wheels first. And you're doing those one by one. So you're grinding this one and you're putting it away. And you grind this one and you're putting it away. But this, when I looked at it, and especially the way you have the sides of it shaped, because as it goes around, it's throwing that stone right back in there, almost like a vibratory tumbler.
Well, it's also got two paddles in there. So those paddles are forcing those stones to interact.
So now you're doing them all at one time instead of one at a time on your wheel.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Courtney, I just sent the video to you in Messenger.
Okay, I'm trying to keep talking. Bear with me. I'm going to.
I saw
because
Josh,
we haven't done the videos
I saw
before,
Josh,
so I want
your
to
comment
how I
about
can do it.
making it variable speed and changing the grit of the disc is a no-brainer. I can make any grit disc that you would want.
Well,
Now,
I was
that's
just
in the
thinking,
plate-
like, if
that's
you
in the
have turquoise,
plate.
you don't want to throw it on an 80.
No.
But I know people that get turquoise and then they stabilize it and they'll cut cabs out of it and throw it in a tumbler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you could cut
Turquoise,
down time, that
put
would
it
be
this way: if you put turquoise in there and you ran this for 30 seconds, you would have the whole thing would be dust.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was going to say, I don't think I'd want to do that.
It's aggressive. On turquoise, I would simply go straight to the vibratory. I wouldn't even run it on rotaries.
Fair enough.
But if you're looking at any kind of hard material, chalcedony or quartz or jaspers, agates, this thing would be, it's massive for that. It's just like what you can produce on it. Because like, okay, when you get to my age, one of the things you really realize is your most valuable commodity is your time.
Absolutely.
And what you can produce in the same time it becomes so important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you're a hobbyist and you don't care about monetizing your hobby at all, or whether you're fully commercial, you still have the same concern, because you go out to your shop and you're going to make stuff. You want to have results come faster.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the same with the high-speed sphere machine when you innovated that, because the assumption was that it would take you a long time to do a sphere, and you can do a sphere in, I mean,
with a core drill and a high-speed machine, I can do a sphere inside of 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is
There's
insane.
an even more important factor. With all of this stuff that's coming around, I have more and better toys than everybody around me.
Did you get it, Court?
Maybe. We're going to find out. So tell me if you
John
can
just
see
grinning
that.
because
Can
he has
you
more
see
toys
it?
than all of us.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
Here we go.
Getting super pixelated though.
Is it?
A
I
little bit.
couldn't figure out how to download it. All I could do was share my screen. So
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's see
if I
it.
can make it. Good Lord, it's so loud.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I took some rock out and ran it for a couple more minutes, and it definitely ran smoother.
Look at that.
Let's see this rock. Wow. These look so good. I can't believe how round they are.
These were kind of jagged pieces.
This is going to change the tumbling game. I really like this one. That's really cool. All these green sticks in there. This is chopstick agate. Yeah.
Zeke was up until almost 2 a.m. this morning playing with that tool.
Gave him a new toy, and he went
And this
crazy.
is a centered diamond lap, so super heavy duty. This machine is so awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
He's actually incorrect. That is a plated wheel. I do have a centered wheel for this machine, but the standard machine comes with a plated wheel, because for most people it's going to take them a long time to wear out the plated wheel.
Right.
Oh,
Right. And it's under $1,000 for that machine, and the machine it's a beast. I mean, you see that thing; it's not like a toy. It's a beast.
yep.
You guys should
Well,
put out a video on him running a full 3-minute cycle so
Right.
people can be like, whoa. Like from beginning to end
Yeah,
live
he'll
would be
do it.
crazy.
He'll make that video.
He will.
You know what's
He
weird
will.
is,
I mean, he can't
I
keep
almost
away.
didn't watch it. I almost didn't watch the video because when it flashed up, I thought, oh, they're playing with the Everclean system again.
Right.
And then about 3 seconds later, I thought, wait a minute, no, something's different here. No, I'm like you guys. This is going to change tumbling for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, what we also
So-
hope is it helps people get successful faster in it, because when people have that first success and it's not a struggle, they're going to stick with it.
Right.
Well, I can tell them how to not have a failure with their first batch. Don't buy a Nat Geo tumbler.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that machine is literally just for the first step, right? And
Yep.
then you're going to go to an actual tumbler, right?
Right.
Okay.
So
It's
gonna
basically
count all
taking your
shaping
whole
time.
course grind process and
Exactly.
compressing that down to minutes.
Compressing the hell
Right.
out of it.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, because imagine if you had pieces of amethyst where they're real edgy
Right.
and you threw them all in there and you were tumbling them, you're literally going to cut a week's time off.
Exactly.
Just the rounding process in a
Yep.
few minutes, that's crazy.
He did
Now,
all
does
those,
this work?
those amethysts in like 3 minutes, I
And
think.
he ran the amethyst for 3
Right.
minutes. So if you look out there and find that video, that's a 3-minute run on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's up on
Does
Facebook.
it work better with small batches in there, or can you load this thing up with like 8 or 10 pounds? And have the same result?
He was running 15-pound batches.
Wow.
Wow.
I'll tell you what the factor is. It's got a big, it's got like a 1.5 horse motor on. I think I put on there, but if you put too much weight in and then go to start it, the physical weight of the rock and the rock pushing against the fins makes it very hard for the motor to start up if you get over a certain mass.
Okay.
But
that makes sense. Yeah.
But if you start it up and then dump more rock in the top, you can increase the batch size.
So does it circulate them at about the same speed, or is the more of it you have in there, the longer it takes because they have to circulate a little bit more?
No, it's going to be close to the same because the action in there is really good.
Well, you can tell when it's on how aggressive that it is.
Without safety glasses on, though, like definitely have safety glasses on because
I bet
you should see the sludge coming out of that thing because like it's just I couldn't believe it last night. I mean, it was like the speed. It's like the high speed sphere machine doing course grind, like it's like 6 minutes you're done. Unlike Arizona wood.
It's just so fun to design a machine like that because it will change people's experience.
Right.
And they can do more and they can have more fun. And it takes, think about sphere cutting. Sphere cutting used to be you spend a day in the saw to cut a 3.5 inch preform. That's a day. It's 26 cuts. And you got to be there, just keep moving, flipping the block. And you get one bad cut. Now your grind time is going to go way up. And then when you're done with that, now you're on coarse grind.
Right.
And that coarse grind it's days. It was days before dribbling the grit on the ball and the machine is running 105 RPMs and it's just slow. And that was the standard from back in the 1960s until, 94. 1994 is when I built my first high-speed machine. And I built it just for me. And that was right around the time I was developing the Diamond Cups. And I was running my first Diamond Cups and really realizing then is that everybody that was selling diamond tools like core bits and cups for lapidary didn't understand the diamond tools. So then I spent years understanding and perfecting how to make diamond segments. And all of that has been what I utilize, like, our diamond blades all utilize the formula that I came up with for our diamond segments for our cups and core bits.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So now that was in that machine right there. What grid is that, John? Somebody's asking what you recommend.
Exactly.
I think that's it's right around between 30 and 50 grit.
Okay.
But it gives you a pretty decent finish on the rock.
Right.
It did really. That has to be to do with the speed with which you're grinding it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that plate's going pretty good pace, but it's perfect for roughing in stuff like that.
Right.
And you really
can't
really walk away from the machine because it works so fast.
Yeah.
You just need to be there. So our audience, I want to let everybody know we're not here just to talk about, just Highland Parks equipment or in particular equipment. If you guys have questions out there, ask questions. That's what we're here for. Listen, John and Sherman and the rest of us together, I think there's probably enough people here we can ask just about any question you have about equipment.
Right.
Rock Queen had a question about grit for petrified wood.
Yeah, agates and pet wood. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For what kind of process? Are you talking for rough grind for tumbling?
Just put it in the chat, Rock Queen.
Yeah, I see, and it says what grit, so I'm going to imagine that this is talking about for a for
the actual tumbling.
Tumble.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me answer that. Let me answer that a couple different ways. Like for this tumble roughing machine, if I was looking at petrified wood or agates or jaspers, I would run them all in that coarse plate that I have.
Right.
But if I was doing stuff like, let's say, for instance, I had orange calcite, or if I had materials that are softer like that, like onyx or chunks that I wanted to round off, I would probably go to like a 120 for that kind of stuff.
Right.
Or you could probably get away with it with this plate, but like your runtime is going to be really short.
Super fast,
You're going to, if you put calcite in there, I might run it for 30 seconds and check it.
Right.
Yeah, because if you run it for 3 minutes or 5 minutes,
there'd be nothing
that
left.
kind of stuff.
Nothing.
You're going to have dust. You're going to open it and go, "Where'd my rock go?"
Yeah. Hey, so for the tumbling sequences, what would Rock Queen do there if you're thinking about straight tumbling, like Dave?
Right. I think that was a good question.
Yep.
Well, let's see. I'm trying to remember. I got so much data in my brain. I'm trying to remember the sequence that we run on tumbling. And you know, there's a 1,000 different opinions on this, and there's some very smart people in tumbling, and I will not profess to be an expert in tumbling, but if I was tumbling petrified wood, even if I tumble rough it, I would start with like an 80 grit or an 80 ungraded. Like some people are like looking for a graded grit for that first one. I would not go graded. I'd go 60-90 for that first grind, because
that's
it doesn't
what I
matter.
use.
Your 60-90 is going to be cheaper than 80 graded grit, and it's going to do the same thing.
What's the difference between graded versus not?
That's a great question.
Okay, that is a great question. So a graded grit, what they're doing is they are sorting it out, and there's a tolerance on it. I don't know what the tolerance is. It's probably like I don't know, 5% or something. But they'll run it through a series of screens, so the grit range that you have would be maybe something like 78 to 82, and they call that a graded grit.
Okay.
So it's going to be very, very close. And if you get in the really fine grits, it's really close to that. And of course, because there's more processing, that grit is always going to cost more than an ungraded. Now, what's really important about this is that if you go out to some of the retailers, particularly some of the ones that are importing from overseas, they will play games because they'll say this is 120 grit, but they may not have, and they'll be amazingly cheaper, but they may not have a graded grit.
Right.
And so here, there'll be an example. Can I speak a specific example on that?
Tells me what a graded is, but so ungraded, it's just a bigger variable.
Ungraded, typically ungraded. So for example, a 60-90 will have a range of grit in that batch that runs between 60 grit and 90 grit.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
So it's not going to have 30. It's not going to have 30 or 40 in it. It's going to be in between 60 and 90, which is fine if you're rough grinding. But as soon as you leave that, every subsequent step should be graded grit. So in your tumbling process, you don't want to buy ungraded grit once you get out of 60-90.
Okay.
Well, and there's a piece that some people have run into, which is an issue that, say, if I do buy 120 grit ungraded, I might have lots of 400 grit size particles in there, and I'm paying, but the 400 is going to do nothing. It's actually going to slow my process down if I want to be running in 400. That's why the grit becomes important, because you can have a lot of, as John said, like filler that's in there that's picking up your weight, but it's actually not going to perform very well.
And you really haven't saved money at that point.
No, you have not.
Yeah, as you and I saw Jaws Jr.'s comment 120, 220. That's an ungraded, and as you go from the coarser grits into the finer grits, it gets more and more important.
Right.
Like you could probably get away with ungraded for that second grit, but when you get into your pre-polish, you don't want to be ungraded there.
Right.
Because it's gonna slow your process down.
You're going to be having scratches way too deep, man.
Yep.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
So somebody on Facebook wants to know if you guys are still working on an automated slab saws.
We've already got one.
Yeah.
Well,
We need a 20-inch, John.
huh?
We need a 20-inch automated one.
Yeah. Well, so okay, I'll tell you what I'm working on. I finished. I did. This is all really pushing into having microprocessor controlled equipment.
Right.
Because every other industry has it except for lapidary, and nobody else is working on shit for that. Certainly the Chinese have done a lot with automating like faceting processes and things. Chinese, Singapore, some of those other India, but there's nothing really commercial available in the U.S. market at all. So I did a 45-inch saw, and you might have seen a couple of videos bouncing around. It's monster.
I was going to say, did you say 45?
45-inch saw.
Holy crap!
It's a beast. And so in doing that, I started thinking about, okay, how do I control the feed rate on it? Because you got a much bigger problem when you have like a really huge blade, because when you start to feed the rock in, maybe your rock engagement is 3 inches, 4 inches. And then by the time you get in the middle of the cut, you're 18.5 inches of engagement. You're a quarter of that blade, and it's a 7.5 horsepower motor running the thing. And if you feed too fast, you're going to have some serious problems. So you can't have a feed curve that looks like a straight line, right? You can't have that feed curve. You have a feed curve that's going to look like this. It's going to go over, and then it's going to slow down, and then it can speed back up. So to do that, what I did is I got a really brilliant programming guy I was working with. He's out of Croatia, I think. And what we did is we did a microprocessor that looks at the motor load and runs a stepper motor on the feed, so you can program in your feed rate, and then it just basically starts feeding the rock, and it looks at the motor load, and the motor load starts climbing up, it slows down the feed, so you never overload it. And then we could do a lot of other really smart things, like if the belt breaks, that it would sense that load drop on the motor and turn off the feed, so it doesn't just keep feeding the rock into a blade that stopped.
Even a spike you could do
like,
too. That's
there's
really
lots
smart.
you can do when you have a microprocessor, because you can look at it and say, okay, let's make it smarter. So I did this with the background of, okay, I want to come up and make an auto slicing saw that is like 18 or 20 inch, that I can put a rock in, and I can go into the touch screen and I can say, okay, my blade is 0.105 thick or 0.085 thick, or whatever the blade thickness is, because you got to have that. And then I want slabs that are, a 1/4 inch thick. And because I know the feed screw on that, the microprocessor is going to do the math and calculate your like how much you need to index each time to get that perfect. And then I can just tell it, cut 1 slab, cut 5 slabs, cut the whole rock. And then when I'm sitting in my shop and I got nobody else around and I want to produce, I'm over cutting cabs, I'm over making spears, I'm doing something else, and the thing's slabbing like crazy, and I don't have to reset it every time. Or what happens, and I know this happens to everyone who's running small businesses in lapidary, the phone rings and you got a customer on, and you're working with your customer, and now your saw stopped and it's just sitting there producing nothing.
Yep.
And so
that's my life.
So that's what I'm working on. That it is not a small project.
Well, can you hurry up, please?
Yeah. So I know when I finish this, this is going to be a really big deal.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
It's going to be transformational.
Yeah, definitely let us know. Definitely. I think you've got at least 2 customers waiting for that
Well, I got
beta test
so many people,
option.
but I made the mistake of talking about it.
You're looking at me for I got kids.
Hey, man, I don't drink.
I'm going to tell you my favorite piece of Highland Park equipment that I own.
Tell us,
And
Dave.
that is your plain and simple 6-inch trim saw.
Yeah.
Now, I have over across the room over there on the other bench, I have a Rock Rascal. And I have days that I would just like to find somebody to throw it at. I'm sorry.
Did you see my video that some people didn't like about comparing the Rock Rascal to the 6-inch?
Oh, my goodness.
It was not politically correct, but
plastic.
I don't know. We have y'all's production
I'm
trim
gonna
saw,
have
and
to
I
go search
love
for
that.
Oh, and I
saw.
want that one
Love
next.
that
But I'm going to
saw.
tell you, I've got this trim saw sitting here, and I've had that for, I think, 3.5 years now. And I'm still using the same blade that I started with 3.5 years ago, that centered blade on there. But I'll tell you what I like about that thing. I abuse that sucker. I flip it on, I run my material through there, I grab it and I torque it against the edge of that blade and I bring it around there. And I mean, I'm cutting a circle with your guys' blade on that trim saw.
Yeah.
I've not seen another trim saw
I'm pretty sure
that I can do that with. And I use nothing. I use borax and water, and it is from a water in there. And when I'm through, I dry the blade off and spray a little bit of WD-40 on it. And the blade doesn't rust. But that sucker, I mean, I've never seen a beast like that. Now, one thing I caution people about with that blade, you better put your safety glasses on, because you're going to get a material bath, because, I mean, it flat cuts.
That's the little beast, man. That's the little beast. We have the production trim saw for ultra demanding commercial cutting application, and it is amazing.
I love
it.
the
Is
length
amazing.
of the name, dude.
Can you abuse it as
I'm-
easily as you can this?
I'm shocked, Dave, that you didn't say you were able to do that on a Ameritool.
You know something? I've not used an Ameritool because all of the ones, I'm one of those people.
They don't
I
have any power. They don't have any
anything-
power. That's the real problem.
And they're plastic. I reject anything made out of plastic. I don't like it. I will not touch a high-tech piece of equipment. For the same money, you get a piece of equipment that's made out of stainless and aluminum. And I mean, when you turn it on, it has that twin capacitor motor on, and it's like sitting in a jet plane. Whoosh, you know.
Love it.
You just get this
That's what we
feeling.
think about. You know, when we're designing the equipment, you know, I have the same feeling. I have not made any products that are plastic based. There may be a certain place for that, but thus far I haven't found any that I would really want to do that with. And now part of you know, like if you look at what's happened over, well, certainly Dave, you and I, our lifetime, that products went from the really durable, you know, cast iron, cast aluminum, you know, stainless steel to so much of the stuff is plastic, and the plastic stuff is really designed to have obsolescence. You know, like nobody expects it to last 5 years, you know, 7 years, because the plastic's going to get brittle over time. And, you know, it like, so that's the thinking. Like, and honestly, our thinking has been, we're going to build a machine that somebody's going to use their whole life, and they could give it to their kids, and their kids could use it for their whole life.
Right.
And it's got serviceable parts on it. I don't want anything that isn't serviceable. Like if it's got bearings in it, it should be serviceable. And it means I got to have a different mindset, because I'm not looking for that reselling the same piece of equipment to that same customer 5 years or 7 years later.
Yeah.
Unless they just need another one.
Well,
yeah,
which
I mean,
means
having two is
partly I'm going to innovate and make some new shit that everybody's going to get excited about. But the other thing is that I'm going to help them get really good rock. Because, I mean, you think about it, if you look at a lot of what occurs on social media, is that you'll have a kind of a narrow group of people that have really great stuff. And you have
Yes.
everybody else that goes, ooh, where did you get that?
Right.
And it isn't easy for people to find a good source where they either don't pay too much or they get really substandard stuff, that's sold as high grade,
Right.
but it's really not high grade. So that's kind of where we've started to put the second part of our, that's what I was doing before I was doing the equipment. I was importing and selling rock, and then I started doing the equipment. I didn't have time for anything else. And now the equipment side is running pretty strong and pretty stable and still growing very, very steadily. But we've had more time to devote to helping people find the good rock. And of course, I love doing that because, I just did a trip to Indonesia. I just went out there by myself and met a whole bunch of new people. And man, I found some really great rough. And so I got a container coming. But part of what, because I have so many people that have equipment that all need good rock, part of what that gives for me is the ability to go out and ferret out new rock, which of course I love just as much as all of everybody else, because I'm in it because I love the rock, not because I just want to make equipment and sell.
Well, and one of the things that John and I kind of stumbled upon, it started last November, is we started showing rock live, because John has a lot of rock, like crazy amount of rock. I think we moved up how many ton, like 50 or 60 ton of rock we moved here, and we still got 40 ton down at your place.
Wow.
We have about 180 ton of rock here, about 180 ton physically in our warehouse here. But John, when he goes out and buys, he's hand selecting all that. I mean, Rock Queen's comment is also accurate. Like a lot of times you'll find stuff, and some of it is like, it looked good, and then you get it and you're like, oh my God, I just got screwed.
Where'd this come from?
Yes.
And so when we started doing the whole live sale things, where we're actually showing every single rock live on video, the people you're actually seeing what you're getting. Like that's what Zeke's doing right now. I don't know, he's probably got 100 some people on there, and because people want to see what what they're going to get, and then they get it, and of course if you don't like it, freaking send it back. Like you're not going to get stuck with it, but it's making allow people to get access to him going around the world finding stuff and bringing it to your living room. Because for us, it's like we used to, like how many people can go, and like it was what John says, trying to find things. We wanted to be able to source stuff from all around the world, and of course we sell equipment around the world too, so we have an interesting way of being able to be in relationship, because we are the only equipment provider in Indonesia who actually, like, we're going there buying rock, but those guys want equipment. So we really have an interesting position that we can get really access to top grade, because we're not just coming in as a generic person to buy.
Right.
Well, now, and you were just talking about that Zeke is doing a live sale right now. Now, is this an auction type? Whoever bids on it first, or whoever says whatever first, they've bought that product?
It's a little bit of a hybrid. So we have some stuff where we'll just put it up and people, like maybe it'll be a one of a kind piece. Like we had some really killer flame agate, and they were one of a kind pieces, and people would just bid, and then the high bid takes it. But most of the stuff we have, like, we'll show what the retail is on it. And our retail prices are better than most people's, because like when I'm buying rough, like I bought some of the best coral I've ever seen. I'm really pleased with it. And I bought 7 ton. I bought everything they had because they had the best coral. So I'm like, when I see stuff like that, I'm going to buy the best. And when I'm buying 7 ton of it and filling a 20-ton container, my buying power is really strong. So I get really good prices. Right. So my retail can be lower. And the quality of what I get, I'm hand grading everything.
Now,
like anybody I buy from lets me hand grade because I'm spending a lot of money with them.
Right.
So I don't take any of the trash.
Some coral from Indonesia one time that was like multicolor. It was pink and in blue, and it was freaking beautiful.
Yeah.
And I have not been able to find any more of it. Do you have that kind of coral?
I got some really good coral in this containers coming.
Okay.
And I got some crazy
more of that. The cabs are amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
No, that palm wood is like really, really good. Well, this is also back to our passion. Our passion is getting people into lapidary. Like that's our mission of our company, is to grow the engagement, awareness, and participation in the lapidary arts.
Right. And it is a community.
Yeah, it's community.
You know, it is a mindset. Lapidary is a mindset that's different than anything else. And of course, I work in the state hospital here. That's where I teach now, and I come across people, you know, almost daily that I get to talking to, and they, you know, we get talking about hobbies and things, and they say, well, what do you do? I said, I play with rocks. I said, I do lapidary work. Well, what's lapidary? Then of course I've got 3,000 pictures on my cell phone, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm always pulling them out. I mean, you know, the patients that come in the classroom where I'm at, I share them with those too. But it is very much, so you'll find people are not split about lapidary. They're either like my wife, oh, it's a rock, or when you show them something that you've made out of a piece of stone, it's not just their face that lights up, everything lights up, and you have instantly made them a piece of a community that they've been looking for and they did not know existed.
Right. And it's a lot of fun to talk to people. I think the people that come to my house are probably sick of it, but the plumber, the plumber comes, you know, and I'm like, hey, you want to see? Yeah, it's in the basement. You want to see what I got going on? And we stand around and we talk about rocks. I had a glider, you know, for the backyard delivered today, and they got to hear all about the rock, you know. But and it's very much that way. Anywhere that I go, you know, and anybody, you know, if they ask, hey, what do you do? Well, you might be sorry you asked that question, because it's going to be at least a 20-minute conversation just to get them started, you know, and then if they're really interested, maybe it'll go farther. But but it's a lot of fun to see if somebody is going to be interested in it or not, and if they are, you know, then we go a little bit farther and we talk about, you know, the shop and what I actually do, and, you know, all of that stuff, and what everybody else does too. I've got a lot of people that'll say, you know, hey, where do I get good quality, you know, rock from? And I've got people that I trust, you know, both in the United States and overseas now, that I can refer them to. So,
hey, you know, one of the thoughts that I had here, thinking about the questions. So one of the common questions about equipment that we run into all the time is we'll get a call and people will contact us when it's starting to get cold.
Right.
And their saws, that's pretty, Dave.
You know where that came from, right? That's nice rock that I got from a company called Highland Park.
I think I recognize that. It looks like that. Is that some of that blue chalcedony?
No, that was some of the Mozambique.
Oh yeah.
Mozambique.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is one of the classic problems that we ran into is that we would sell a lot of saws, but we never really dealt anything with the coolants because we didn't want to be in the coolant business. And we would get phone calls starting around now that people would say, your saw's not cutting. And it would typically be above the band, you know, where it's starting to get cold. And they're really running into issues because they're running that large animal enema laxative oil from, you know,
the vet,
you know, Tractor Supply.
The veterinary or food grade mineral oil.
Yeah. And so the viscosity is changing.
What's interesting is I still, like on social media, I still see all these people that will promote that. And really what it comes down to is that when it gets cold, they're at like a 15, we recommend 6 to 7 C. They're that vet grade and the food grade are 15 to 18 CST, which is like more than twice as thick at 40 degrees. And then when it gets cold in their shop, it's probably doubling. So it's now up at around a 30. And what happens is the flushing in the cut starts to diminish. And literally the oil can't get out of the way of the blade. So the blade pressure goes up.
Because you're hydroplaning the blade on the oil.
The blade pressure. Let me explain what I mean by blade pressure. This is really important. This is probably the top problem that people have if they're running this kind of oil, is blade pressure is how hard the feed mechanism is pushing the rock against the blade. Now, if you've got a proper cutting process, then the blade is free cutting, which means as fast as the feed mechanism is advancing it, it's removing the material, and then the pressure between it and the stone is not very high.
Right.
But when you run a thick oil, and particularly when it gets cold, then two things happen. One, the oil becomes much more thick, and just the thickness creates more drag on the motor, more force in the cut. But the other thing is the flushing and the sharpening of the bit of the blade, the sharpening of it diminishes, so the blade gets duller.
Right.
Now, if the person has talked to us and they've listened or they've watched my video on how to sharpen your blade, and they do a good job of sharpening their blade, they can actually get away with cutting with that grade oil. Now, they got to sharpen the blade a lot.
A lot.
And it's not a hard thing to do, but if they don't, then here's what usually happens, is that the blade pressure climbs up and either falls their saw completely and the motor sits there and smokes and kills the main motor. We've seen that.
Yep.
And or it pushes the rock so much that the rock slips in the vise, and then you get a crash, and then the blade turns into a Z.
Right.
And the number one cause is the oil.
Right.
Number one. So, I mean, if I'm really being of the most service to people, I would tell them, get a 6 to 7 CST oil and run that, and still keep your blade sharp, because if you're cutting a lot of hard materials, you'll hear it when the blade is like, the blade pressure is high. You'll hear the saw pushing harder, and then you sharpen it, and you'll be like, is it even cutting?
Right.
Because you can hear the difference.
Yeah.
What exactly does CST mean?
Centistokes, measurement of viscosity.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
So I will say, go ahead, Courtney.
I was just going to say, Victoria wants to know if it's better to use oil or water when cutting.
It's a great question.
Good
I
question.
mean, anything over 10 inches, you're going to use oil no matter what, right?
It depends on the stone.
Let's see. Let me. No, I'd actually say that would not be the guideline.
Okay.
So I would break it into two categories. First of all, the type of equipment that you have. So let's say, for instance, you have a big slab saw. So it's power feed saw. All the components inside are steel. You don't really want to run water in that saw.
Yeah.
Now, let's say, and we do have customers that are cutting a really porous chrysocolla, and they cannot afford to have oil in that stone because they want to stabilize it after they cut it. Now, they can get away with running water in a big saw. Now, they void their warranty when they do that, because we know part of what happens when they do that, right? But they can get away with it. But what I tell them always is, dump all the water at the end of the day, open the saw up, do like Dave did, wipe your blade, the rails down, spray stuff with WD-40, and you can actually keep the saw pretty well maintained and cut something that like that. Now, we do make entirely stainless steel 18. Like it's we made it
gorgeous,
we made it for the DOTs, because they do core sample. They can't have any oil in a core sample of asphalt or concrete because it will affect the stress testing. So we did make that, but that would be the first thing, get the equipment. So let me take us through the equipment. You got trim saw, 6 inch, 8 inch, 10 inch, 12 inch. Any trim saw, you can run water in. But I'm going to give you the same advice. You dump your water at the end of your cutting session.
Clean it every day.
Each day.
Yeah.
Spray down your blade with, wipe it down, spray it down with a little boardy, because the blade is going to, you'll get corrosion on it otherwise.
Yeah.
You don't have to tear the whole saw apart or anything. You just,
just clean it. Yeah.
And don't put a hood on it where it can't dry out. Let it dry out.
Right.
So you can do that. Now, the second group of equipment would be drop saw. Now, we have a 36, have a 14. Either of those machines run water on. Two reasons why. It's not an enclosed system, and they are easily to able to dry out, and it's perfect for certain materials where you want to be able to use water and not have any oil get into the stone.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Now, having said all that, all of those machines could be run with oil. So if you're cutting like Queensland agates on a trim saw, I would never cut Queensland agates with water. And the reason being is that they're kind of an opalitic agate, and they're very, very easy to fracture.
So heat.
So you get that tiny amount of heat that's occurring if you're pushing it very lightly. If you dry it off and you look at the cut, you'll see all these little micro fractures running across the cut.
Right.
And if you are running oil and you push it too fast, you'll still get the same effect. So you got to be careful with those agates.
Right.
Or if you're cutting common opal, same thing.
Yeah.
So
okay.
The answer around oil and water really has to do with what you're trying to do, what you're trying to cut, what you're trying to make.
Right.
And
so same thing, do your research, right?
Yeah.
Bottom line, do your research.
So that may be, I have an old Diamond Star 6-inch that I'm getting ready to refurb. Matter of fact, I'm going to take the motor off of this silly rock rascal sitting over here and put on it. But whoever had it before me was using oil in it. And I thought, well, this is a trim saw. What does anybody want to run oil for? I mean, I'm doing with my hands. I don't want oil, splashing everywhere. But that may be the very idea right there that someone else was using as well. It may have been the material that they were cutting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. Right. Well, that gets back to the questions we're always asking is, what are you trying to make and what are you trying to make it out of? Right. Because those are the starting questions for anything around coolants, what type of equipment, technique, processing. You've got to look at those fundamental questions. It's not a one size fits all, which is part of when we see on Facebook, you have so many people answering a question that's not being asked. And it confuses, especially beginners, where they just don't know where to go.
Well, I'll tell you what the challenge is you have so many people that are kind of like dealers. So when somebody asks the question, they just want to sell their machine.
Right.
They don't really care about the result because they're not going to support that person after they buy it. They just are pushing this thing, for, either for their friend who's a dealer or for themselves. Right. Or because they are, they have one and but they're not asking the question. And the problem is that then people end up with the wrong equipment.
Right.
So it sounds like there's
guys,
three real
I hate to cut everybody off, Dave, but we're over our time for tonight.
Oh, there's never over time.
We just get so lost in talking that we lost track of time.
So much fun.
We are over our time for tonight.
And we would love to sit here for another hour.
Well, we can do it again.
Talk with you guys.
Right.
But absolutely. Yeah. Oh, for sure we'll do it again. Yep. For sure.
Yeah, and I'm really happy if we do this again and we want to talk about equipment or any subject really around lapidary. If you can, and this was really for everybody that's in the room with us, if you have questions that you want us to speak to or want us to discuss, it'd be great if we can get some of the questions. If you know what they are, we can get them up front and then make sure that we're covering them.
So we have a group, right? It's called obviously the Love of Lapidary Podcast group, right? what if I, we'll schedule the next day that you're going to come, and then I'll just put a post in there and say, hey, you guys, give us a list of questions so we can kind of be pre-prepared.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll push that around for you. Like
okay,
wildfire.
so we can talk about that and figure out when to have you back.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
It's
Thanks,
always a
guys,
blast
for
having
coming.
you.
It's always
Thanks
a pleasure
so much for having
seeing
us.
you.
So much. And,
And,
hey, everybody, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. It really
Gotta do
helps.
that.
Yes,
Gotta do
please like,
Yep.
share, subscribe, comment, join the Facebook group if you're not a part of it.
that. Go give these guys
There's
some
a
love over
page
on Highland
and there's
Park
a
Lapidary.
group. So the page is where I just share the links to the shows. You guys can't really, you can comment on posts there, but you can't actually post. The group is where we're trying to do more activity where you can actually do posts of your work, posts of your, which we want to see. Share your work with us because we want to share that as well. So anyway, Dave, do you have anything you want to say like super fast?
Just really super fast. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm glad everybody was here. I think it's been a great show. It's always really informative with John and Sherman. But don't count on them just to be here next time. Come on and see us anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you guys hang around for a minute after we're through here.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Do you guys want to say anything real quick before I shut it down?
We just appreciate
just
you guys
appreciate
doing it.
Other than
everybody,
peace.
the positive comments and feedback.
Okay.
See
All
you,
right.
buddy.
You guys, thank you all for showing up. We appreciate you. We love you. And we will see you next
Have a
week.
good one.
Bye.
Later.